Hey everybody, in this segment of how I bought 50 houses in 52 weeks at just 22 years old, I want to share how I structured them so that I could start gaining long-term cash flow without banks, money, or credit. So you may be familiar with the concept of owner financing. So what I did is I got some scripts of how to talk to the seller and asked them if they were willing to finance me. And many I talked to, of course, weren't. Believe it or not, many sellers want all cash and retail value and close right away. But there was a minority of sellers that I spoke to who were willing to entertain taking monthly payments. And in fact, I still buy houses like this today. So what I did is I began to ask sellers if they would take monthly payments. And of course, no, 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 no. And then someone would say yes, or tell me more about it. So I would explain to them that I'll buy your house. Sometimes maybe they had a debt on it. They were going to be facing foreclosure. They were behind on payments, or perhaps they just had an unwanted house. And I would structure it so that either A, if there was a mortgage, I was covering the underlying mortgage payment, maintenance, repairs, taxes, insurance, and everything, so the seller could move on. Let's say there's an underlying mortgage, they was going to lose it to foreclosure. I would agree to cover that underlying mortgage payment on an owner finance, bring the mortgage current if that was the situation or case needed, and then make the payment every month on behalf of the seller. And maybe you're asking, do you need the owner financing? Do you need to go down to the bank and sign the note? The way I structure it, closing with my real estate attorney, I do the owner financing and just agree to cover their payment. I don't have to apply or get the loan or any of that. I simply buy the house, agree to make the payments, and in the case of no debt, of course, agree to send the seller a check every month until I cash them out at agreed time. So some sellers are willing to go, say, 30 years. Some want a balloon period. And so I simply ask the seller what they want, what they're willing to do, and then see if it's something that makes sense to provide that to them. And obviously, I need to make sure that my monthly payment, either to their mortgage or to the seller, leaves me enough room so that I can get more rent than I have going out on the payment and taxes and insurance, etc. Now, I'll share with you in another segment about how I get the tenants to make the repairs and how I was able to scale that side so quickly as well. But for the sake of time, I want to share with you simply the owner financing strategy. So that is one major way that I was able to talk to hundreds of sellers that led me down to the few sellers who led me to buying 50 houses in 52 weeks without banks at just 22 years old. That was absolutely a game changer. Prior to this, I'd went to banks, asked them for a loan on properties, and of course, a 22-year-old sitting in front of them, they wanted to know my experience. Well, I didn't have a lot of experience prior to that, at least not in real estate, and that was what they wanted. So I was able to buy 50 houses in just 52 weeks, largely using the owner financing strategy. And you may ask, well, who would do owner financing? And the answer is, I don't know. Didn't know till I asked. Sometimes it was inherited properties. Sometimes it was someone who was losing it to foreclosure and was happy to have that taken care of, and then I began making the payments. And some cases it was someone who owed back taxes, was going to lose the property, needed some work done to it maybe, and they didn't want to have to do the work or didn't have the funds to do the work. So it's a way that I was able to provide them not only a great price for their house and still make a profit in the end, but a way to be able to give them some cash flow over time if again it was a free and clear property. So owner financing was the number one strategy that I used in doing this. Now, typically, you heard me say in a previous video, if you seen the one where I mentioned I started wholesaling, which I still do some of today, But typically, we buy these owner finance deals with nothing down. But in the case you're going to bring a mortgage current or a seller needs some down payment money, and of course that's why I recommend start with wholesaling and have some funds in the bank in the business account for that. That way, if someone is behind by $6,000 or $7,000 or $8,000, and in some cases I've had people be willing to give equity, tens of thousands of dollars of equity, just because they needed to get rid of that property in the mortgage current. So a lot of different ways to structure that, but at the end of the day, owner financing was my number one key way to buying these 50 properties in 52 weeks. Now, not all of them was owner financing. I used some other strategies I'll be showing you, but that was my absolute number one way. And it's a way that you can use to grow your portfolio quickly, whether you have bad credit or just not a lot of credit, whether you're young or in between or older or wherever you are in life. If you're looking to build your portfolio quickly and scale quickly, it is a wonderful way to do that. Now, I've gotten the question several times, there's no owner finance deals in my area, what do I do? And the answer is, I have been doing this now since 2014, and I absolutely have been had the honor and privilege of working with students all across the U.S. over the last several years. And there are owner finance deals in every market. Yes, even now with the heated market, there's owner finance deals. It just comes down to two things. Number one, lead flow. So you got to talk to several people to get a yes. And number two is asking the right questions. And so those are the absolute keys to getting owner finance deals in any market, anywhere, is lead flow and asking the right questions. I will mention, though, outbound calls. We have helped students all across closing deals actually from outbound calls, but I much prefer inbound. So when the seller calls us in my business, every ninth seller, last numbers I had, every ninth seller who calls us, I buy their house. Whereas when we're outbound calling, the number is much higher. So it's a numbers game. Owner financing, check it out, my friend. It's an amazing way to grow your portfolio. I'll see you soon.